So Jeff Wolverton, is there anyone here who's never met Jeff by chance? Good, everyone knows him. He's just such a jewel, such a special person. I remember when Kathy Riley dragged me to the center for the first time. And then I went by myself the next time. I told her that it was really Jeff and Annie that really made my trips, because I didn't know anybody and I felt kind of, nervous and shy and lonely at times. And she scolded me and said that shouldn't be the highlight of my time at the Papa Center, but it was, because they made me feel so welcomed and so loved and seen. And to this day, I really, really, really love to see them there. And we had big group lunches when we were there 2 months ago. Every day we would have a group lunch and invite the staff or just whoever wanted to join us, because that's what Annie and Jeff used to do. And it was just like such a special time to really get to know people, and it felt like family. So so I was telling Diana that there's a little clip here of, and we'll watch it at the end, of Jeff talking about his childhood and about how he came to Baba. And it's very interesting to hear. It really gave me some insight into Jeff Wolverton, who I just adore.
Excuse me, by the way, is that Annie of the cookies? The cookie maker Annie?
The cookie maker Annie. Annie Lovett, who's tiny and petite and lovely and delicate. Yeah.
That's Annie of the cookies, because I just have this memory of her. She makes cookies.
Oh yeah, she loves to cook
in the refectory. Yeah,
it's one of the lovely things about Annie, I think. To show you all this hilarious photograph of Jeff that I found on YouTube. It's just so him. That's Jeff moving mattresses at the Papa Center. Isn't that great? That's so Jeff, just so humble and hardworking and just doing what he does.
Oh wow!
I know, right? And this is Jeff with Will David when they were all young.
Mary Lloyd.
Yeah. So it's so fun to see these photographs.
For sure.
So I thought we would just start with some music from Jeff, because that's just such a lovely, and I hope I didn't close all those. No, I didn't. I was showing Diana how to do this and I think I messed myself up. I closed one of them. But anyway, this is a song that Kathy Riley recorded on one of her CDs. It's a Tagore poem called Touch Me With Your Fire. And I don't know who wrote the music, but they both sing it the exact same way. So one of them, I think, wrote the music, and it's quite lovely.
Oh, touch me with your fire, Lord. Burn and purify my life. Touch me with your fire, Lord. Purify me. Lift my body. Make it your temple, Lamb. Let my songs be the oil that feeds the flame. Lift my body, make it your temple, Lamb. Let my songs be the oil that feeds the flame. So touch me with your fire, Lord. Burn and purify my life. Touch me with your fire, Lord. Purify me in the core of darkness. Stars bloom forth from your touch, and my longing is a flame rising to heaven in the core of darkness. Stars bloom forth from your touch, and my my longing is a flame rising to heaven, so touch me with your fire, Lord. Burn and purify my life. Touch me with your fire, Lord. Purify me.
I remember a lovely conversation that Jeff and I had when I was at the center 2 times ago, and I was sharing with him that that I've noticed how often people on the spiritual path don't feel good about themselves and don't believe in themselves and don't have confidence in themselves. And he made a comment about that. We actually had a long conversation about it. He said that he had seen the same thing, and he felt that it was not what Baba wanted from us, to be humble, but to also recognize our greatness at the same time, to recognize our lineage of royalty and to keep our feet on the ground all at the same time. I guess it's tricky, but I just wanted to share it because it really comes up in the conversation that we're going to listen to later when Jeff talks about his childhood and moving to New York City and in college and what the effect it had on him. The effect it had on him, and not a good way. So it's so interesting to hear it. And then this was a conversation that I can't remember if Jeff and I were talking and I wrote it down. It seems to me that's what happened, but I'm sorry to say I don't remember. But I'll just read it to you because I read it down, a little chat that he and I had. I believe I asked him, what keeps Baba at a distance for you? And Jeff said, I wake up kind of heavy and I begin with Baba's name and I remember him. And by 8:30, when I go into work, those impressions of the morning are bringing me back to him. And I spend several hours doing that in the morning. And then he continued, sometimes in the afternoon, that current stalls out. When the current stalls out, the mind comes in and gives me several options, none of which are good. And then life becomes ordinary. And then he continued, I have to do something to create the flow again. It can be volleyball or poetry or children. I don't have to ask what to get the flow going because it is going again. Life has certain timeless, spacious quality at that point. It becomes effervescent. In those stalling moments, Baba seems far away. It is the heart flowing. When the stall happens, you have to push through it and get the flow going again. Even in negative situations, you can have the heart flowing. Baba said, we are infinite, but then we look down, we see the mind, we identify with it as a person, we shut it down, we buy into finiteness. My favorite part of that is when he said, suddenly life becomes ordinary by stopping the flow that he experiences when he is in the presence of that sacredness. Any thoughts or comments? I guess I'd like to ask a question, and not to spend a long time on it because I'd really like to listen to Jeff's poetry, but maybe if we just take a few sentences for everybody here to say, what is one of the best ways you have found to reconnect to Baba when you feel disconnected? What is the thing you kind of go to for that? For me, it's to go into prayer or to sit with one of his photographs. because it seems like he's sort of available inside his photography. That's what I experience. That if I just gaze on his image, somehow it awakens his presence for me.
Yeah, I don't really feel like I can ever. He's just everywhere in here. There's no hope. I'm in Barber prison voluntarily. It's just everywhere all the time. Look out. But I can't say that's gorgeous, and I can't say it's prayerful, and I can't say it's always comfortable, but that's where it's been. I didn't really have that experience till later, till about 72, 73, of it being everywhere. Once I got to India, I realized you have to put it everywhere. And now, as I've said before, I sort of seem to have developed what I call a lamlar. I don't know where I got that word from, but it's like a clear piece of plastic, and his image is here all the time. When I get angry and stuff, it's his fault. So, I just do the fluffy slipper treatment and throw a slipper or something at him. But it gets to the point where I heard a beautiful image the other day from a fellow who's sort of come back to the Barber group, and he went to the center for the first time for, I think, 16 years since he even connected with people. I might have that wrong. And he said that when he got into the center, he immediately got into the eye of the cyclone or hurricane. It was absolutely dead still, and only Barber. There wasn't anything else. And he realized in this lovely lavender, lemon, pink world, just don't run into the walls. Oh, just stay in there. Just take that with you as you leave. And I suppose we all gradually work out, that's going to take me there, and that's going to take days to get out of it. So I ain't going to go there. And how various ways we have of pulling ourselves back into his protective gaze.
Thank you. That's lovely.
I find myself singing or humming the Western Artie. And because that takes me back to when I first heard about Baba, the music really impressed me.
Yeah.
And so that I find I've got a lot of ego showing up these days. And
Nobody can relate to that, Telly.
No.
Nobody can relate to that.
The prayers for sure can also put things in perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't have a sense of either like being in his presence or not being in his presence, because I know he's always there. I think it's just how close I feel. Sometimes it's more distant, but it's always in his, a distant presence, a close presence.
Wow.
Certainly in Myrtle Beach, I'm all there. It's but you're talking, I think, about when we don't have that wonderful support of being on
Right.
the center,
Right.
where his divine presence is there.
Right.
It's just an ebb and flow of the day, and I can't will it. I can't make it be there.
Right.
It comes from what I'm doing at the moment. Certainly, like even doing the prayers. Sometimes I'm not present when I do my prayers, and I find I'm saying the end of the prayers, and I'm like, where was I? And other times I'm very into the prayers, and I'm thinking, wow, like one phrase I'll just think it's as if I had never heard that little phrase from the prayer.
Right.
And so it's really just a question of how far I am from him, or how
Right.
close I am to him.
Yeah.
but he's always there.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I find that sometimes my biggest connection is when I'm suffering.
Mm,
That's when I need him the most. So
mm,
even though I have photos all around and I have reminders to say his name, and I do find that is what happens, is that I keep needing to talk to him and ask him for help.
mhm,
So then when things subside and I'm not suffering so much, he's not in my thoughts as much.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
then I'm keenly aware of that. So I Jeff talks, since we're talking about Jeff, let me quote Jeff. Jeff says that Baba's always inside your heart and he's asleep, but like anybody you call their name, they're gonna respond.
Yeah.
And so that's what I keep reminding myself to do, is to call his name.
Yeah.
And I do lots of things. I'm on lots of Baba Zoom things. So to keep remembering and hear how other people are bringing him into their lives.
Yeah. I think I shared this story last year at some point in time, but I think it's worth mentioning that when I went out to the Hopi reservation, I was with an elder there, and I said to her, "Oh, I said, you don't have any running water in your house, and you don't have a floor." It was just dirt floor, and she kept her water in big 50-gallon stainless steel trash cans that were clean, and she cooked everything on a fire because she didn't have any electricity. And I said, the village next to you on First Mesa has electricity. Why doesn't this village have electricity? Because clearly they had chosen not to have electricity. They had chosen not to have running water. That's a big deal to choose that in your house. And she said, well, we made a decision not to have those things because we feel like if we have everything, we forget to be thankful and to ask God for help. And we just wanted to be grateful, and we just wanted to keep asking God for help. And we just wanted to remember God. So that's why we decided not to have all those things. And I just thought, oh my God, that is just like, yes.
So I'm in really good company.
Right? I just thought it just seemed so true to me, what she said. Yeah.
I'd like to add something that it's not about me. It's actually about someone who had met Baba. It's Dana Field, who used to live in California. He's from like way back when. And I don't know if this was to remember Baba or feel close to him, but he used to image Baba. He called it imaging Baba. He would create a picture of Baba in his mind. And I was thinking of that the other day, and I tried to image Baba, and I could not. It's not that I don't know what he looks like, but I wanted to study his face in my mind. I couldn't make his face appear in my mind, even though I know what he looks like at different stages of his life. It was the most peculiar experience, but for me. But Dana really imaged Baba a lot.
Yeah. It's funny, Diane, because I have the exact opposite experience. I know that Baba works through our suffering, and I feel like I've suffered quite enough, thank you very much, in my life. And so a lot of times I'm sorry, Baba, I cannot connect to you because I'm just not up for suffering today. And I literally disconnect to him on occasions because I am afraid he is going to make me suffer more. And I'm just like, I just can't do that. I just can't do anymore. So I actually have the exact opposite thing of, being afraid, really, of being put in through that suffering, more suffering, which is just interesting, No point in being afraid of it because I'm going to go through it anyway, right? So you can go kicking and screaming, or I can go. Welcome and happy. If you would like to comment on this, you are welcome to, and you don't have to, of course. But I'd like to create a moment for you to say something if you would like to about the topic of when you feel disconnected to Baba, what helps you to quickly, find that thread.
Hi, Ralph. Sometimes Ralph has to talk to us through the chat, but can you talk to us today, dear? An old friend
I
involved.
think so. I seems to be working a little better these days,
Oh,
the past day or two.
Oh, good.
That was quick. That was quicker than we were having tremendous time delay. Yeah, no, let me just get the thread, if I may, Baba family. And I'm just dropping in to not eavesdrop, but participate as a listener, I think.
Yeah,
And I'm so we're doing good. Yeah. I
good.
don't have anything to say at the moment. Thank
That is
you. Say Baba to everyone.
Hey, Baba.
Ralph,
We'll carry on then with some Jeff Wolverton poetry.
Yes.
And so here is one. These are poems that I gathered from his wonderful book that he did with Bob Yeager, Whistling Past the Tavern. It's fantastic if you are starting a poetry collection in your home. This is a lovely addition. They're just very inspiring, and I cannot recommend them more highly. I just think he's done some brilliant work. And if you know Jeff well, you know that he dropped into a space where the poems came to him. He jotted them down. It was a period of like 3 or 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I forget how. It was a very short period of time, and then the poem stopped. And so all of these poems in this collection are from that very short period of time where he literally felt like they were just sort of dropping into his pen. And he was constantly, when he was at the center working, he would, go run into the pantry, go run to the bathroom, he would go run somewhere so that he could write it down because the poems were coming to him. So I feel like jewels that were dropped into his lap. And this one is called, it's a little bit actually what we've been talking about. It's called Through a Glass Darkly. Have you ever watched someone through your window and even waved to them, but because of the reflection, they couldn't see you? That's how the beloved is with us, following our every mood and feeling, full of delight at our happiness, and hurt when we feel bad about ourselves. And yet, we often do not know he's there. Because we keep seeing our own reflection in front of us. But do this. Step very close to the window and look in. You'll be eternally surprised by the beloved's warm, adoring face. This next one is called God's Fools. The beloved's scissors do not cut along the dotted lines of convention. He cuts lives to shreds and scatters them to the winds. His true lovers have no address in this world, though they can be found here and sometimes there. They have been stripped of moods and wander in a succession of states that have no past or future. When they appear to be plunged in grief, don't say they have lost something. They weep for what they cannot find. And when they dance in ecstasy, don't say they have found things you value. They are mighty rivers rejoicing as they meet the ocean. This one is called Boat or Marina. The spiritual journey is not about steering our little boat safely through a busy marina without bumping into anything. We have to become the entire marina itself. Spirituality is not about going somewhere, but about expansion of being, so that little by little, everything in creation finds its loving place in our own hearts. This one's called.
Would you mind reading? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
This, I won't request it, but I'll ask if everyone would mind hearing the second one again. The second poem.
The second one.
Yeah.
That's
You've
cool.
read 3, I think.
Yeah. The
Did I
second
miss
one.
one?
I'm happy to read it again. And always good to hear a poem again.
Right.
It's called God's
Yes.
Fool. The beloved scissors do not cut along the dotted lines of convention. He cuts lives to shreds and scatters them to the winds. His true lovers have no address in this world, though they can be found here and sometimes there. They have been stripped of moods and wander in succession of states that have no past or future. When they appear to be plunged in grief, don't say they have lost something. They weep for what they cannot find. And when they dance in ecstasy, don't say they have found the things you value. They are mighty rivers rejoicing as they meet the ocean. That was worth hearing again. Thank you for asking. This one I think was inspired by Daniel Ladinsky. You know, he has such an irreverent way of saying something sacred. And the title of this poem is Don't Settle for the Cheap Seats. People talk about the battle between good and evil, but our beloved says that all life is one divine symphony. Unfortunately, most of us have the cheap seats next to the percussion section. And if we had our way, we'd get rid of those noisy musicians making all the racket. But that will never do. What is needed is to pay the price for a better seat, one in the center of the auditorium, where the percussion blends in perfectly with the rest of the orchestra. The cost of that seat is our life. That's where the mystics sit. They don't get all caught up in good and evil. They sit back and enjoy the magnificent performance. That reminds me of that great Rumi poem, where the famous line, let the beauty we love be what we do. There's a line in there where he says, I would love to kiss you. The price of kissing is your life. Now my life is running towards my loving, shouting, what a bargain. Let's buy it. This one is called An Artist's Fate. A heavy cloud passes across my heart's sky today. I can't help thinking how cheated we are by life. It continually destroys yesterday and all its beauty, leaving behind only an empty memory we cannot touch or taste. Why have you set it up this way? All those magnificent times we poured our souls into, gone. What if an artist, in order to create a new landscape, had to paint over his previous canvas? You reply knowingly with this question of God who was not created, as long as you drag around with you all your creations, past, present, and future. I think it's of God, but I think it's supposed to be a God. I'm going to change it. I have a feeling like I'm going to read that last paragraph again because I'll read the whole poem again because the last paragraph confused me. A heavy cloud passes across my heart's sky today. I can't help but thinking how cheated we are by life. It continually destroys yesterday and all of its beauty, and leaves behind only an empty memory we cannot touch or taste. Why have you set it up this way? All those magnificent times we poured our souls into, gone. What if an artist, in order to create a new landscape, had to paint over his previous canvas? You reply knowingly with this question, a God who was not created. As long as you drag around with you all of your creations, past, present, and future. I'm a little confused by that poem. Here's a short one, then we're going to listen to Jeff sing. This one's called Too Much to Carry. All my needs I've packed in one small suitcase. For my wants, I've rented a warehouse. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? So this is.
Can you repeat that last one, Trace?
Oh yeah. Bloop. All my needs I've packed into one small suitcase. For my wants, I've rented a warehouse.
Very good. Brings
I
to
know,
mind-
right?
Brings to
Okay.
mind the image of Marnie saying, "Be careful, you're packing your suitcase for your next life."
Right. No, it's so true. So completely true. So when I was showing Anna about something, I accidentally shut the page that I wanted to play for you. So I'm gonna just flip through here real quick and see if I can find it. And if I can't, I will. I can't find it. So we're just going to listen then to Jeff. This is it's about 30 minutes, his coming to Baba story. We're not going to listen to the whole thing. We're going to listen to the first 15 minutes, and then I can synopsize for you the last little part of it. But it's so telling. I really love it. I hope you like it as much as I do. I just love listening to Jeff talk. Makes me so happy. She almost dropped in my lap. I know, right? You're welcome to steal it. Steal it and write a poem with it.
Okay, I've got the chorus down.
Good. Okay, here it is. This is from 1999. Baba's birthday sahabas.
And all that. And this dome over here was Baba's presence. So it's thrilling. This is kind of like a pioneering, like Darwin, Shaw, and Elizabeth and Marina when they started working at the center in Myrtle Beach. There's a nice excitement. I wanted to make one brief acknowledgement of, she's not here today, but that's Adele Vulcan. In my early months with Baba back in the 60s in New York City, Adele was so sweet. She used to come to my college. Can you hear all right? Yeah. She used to come to my college and meet me. I was just kind of a bearded college kid, and she would come with, literature and brochures and things like that, and sit there and we would talk about Baba, and then we'd go out on the campus and walk around, and time again she came, and it's that she really gave that beautiful feeling of belonging, and I think that feeling of belonging is one of the most important things. To belong to Baba and to belong to each other is something very special. Anyway, I thought that I would begin with my story of how I came to Baba. And then I think that we're going to have the cake and everything, and afterwards I was going to talk about some of the struggles that I've had in my inner life with Baba, which I think all of you can relate to, and some of the things that have been helpful to me, and that includes some exchanges that I've had with the Mandali over the years and some of Baba's close ones. So that'll be the second half. So here's how Baba caught me in his net. I grew up in Washington State, in Tacoma. I came from a big family. We had 5 kids. We were a bit unorthodox. My parents both had been communists in the labor movement in the 30s. So we really, and this, we were kind of in a conservative neighborhood, so we kind of stood out. Like a wart on a bald head, maybe, But anyway, and we were known as the heathens in the neighborhood. My dad had the kids used to call my dad, he said that he looked like Satan because he had these eyebrows that kind of were pointed out. But we were a very fun-loving family, and we just blew it off. But, while everybody in the neighborhood went off dutifully to church every Sunday, we slept in and read the comics and sports section and had breakfast of waffles. But as soon as Sunday school was, church was over, all the kids in the neighborhood piled into our house because we had this big house and we had lawns and fruit trees and we had sports and camps and everything like that. So they weren't really worried about their chances for hanging out at our place. I had a very idyllic childhood. It went on forever. My mother, my mom had a special relationship with Jesus. But she, it was a personal thing, and she didn't really talk about it, and she didn't push it on us. And the only involvement I had with religion was in the summer between my 3rd and 4th grade. My brother and I wound up going to the Midwest to stay with my grandparents. And my grandmother was very devout. She had a great love for Jesus. She would read the Bible cover to cover every year, Old and New Testament, which is kind of incredible. We don't even read God Speaks that much, And we wound up going to church, which was a novel thing for my brother and I. And we were a very informal family, so this was pretty serious, but we were kind of more amused by it. And our favorite time was when everybody bowed their heads in prayer. And my brother and I would pop our heads up, and we were like free. We had the whole place to ourselves. Everybody was, and so we used to that was the best time. Anyway, at the end of the summer, my grandmother gave me a mustard seed in a glass ball and a chain, and she said, Jesus had said that if you have faith in a grain of mustard, you can move mountains. So I believed that completely. I was a young kid, everything. I've been mainly just moving compost and topsoil, but I'm getting there. But the thing is, when I came back to the 4th grade, something unexpected happened. I felt Jesus watching me wherever I went. When I was at home, on the way to school, in the classroom, and out on the playground, I felt I couldn't see him, but I knew he was watching me. And I didn't mention it to anybody because everybody else had been going to church. I thought you kind of picked it up there. But then by the end of the year, I got so far into school and my friends and sports and everything, I totally forgot about it. So by the time I was in high school, I was basically an agnostic, bordering on being an atheist. But my family believed in love, and I didn't have any doubts about that, and that we were all the people on the earth are members of one family. And I felt that. I felt there were deeper things within me, but I didn't associate that with God. But I knew there were deeper things in each one. Anyway, my senior year, I applied for a number of schools in the West. In the East Coast. And when it came time to choose, I felt this something inside of me saying that what I was looking for in life, I would find in New York City. This is totally uncharacteristic of me, but it was so strong that I actually, chose Columbia University in New York City. I don't know, it was just like, I don't know where it came from, but but anyway, so the next thing I'm on a train and I'm going out east, and it turns out there are about 30 or 40 other people who are going east. We had a magnificent time on the train, and a buddy of mine had a banjo, and we just sang folk songs the whole way. We got into Chicago, and we got on the New York Central, and this is a train, and it became very impersonal, and it was quite a change, and the porters weren't just naturally friendly. They wanted tips and everything like that. It was just whole change in it, but we were kind of in a party mood and it didn't bother us too much. But when I got to New York City, I was the last guy, you know, everybody else had kind of gotten off in their colleges. But I got off at Grand Central and I got my bags and I started across West 42nd Street. You know, I'm a kid of 18, but I was so shocked to see how people treated each other. And there was such rudeness and indifference, anger and racist. I mean, I never seen people behave like this. And I remember at one point, I looked into a restaurant and almost as if it was slow motion, I could see the manager putting pressure on the waitresses, and the waitresses were putting pressure on the customers to finish eating so they could get more customers. And this is like, it was shocking that I actually wept as I was going across West 42nd Street. Now, I wasn't given to just weeping, but I was really shocked at New York. But as time went on, I grew to love New York, and I found some of the most loving people there. So for the first year in college, I kind of got into the whole world of learning and studying. You know, when you're in college, you make a lot of close friends and everything. We had a great, close-knit group of buddies, and we went through a lot of suffering together, a lot of soul searching. What's life about? Does God exist? All this. The thing I was really disappointed about is that these professors, a lot of these people were famous professors and everything, but I didn't feel they had much humanity in them. They didn't have much in the way of they didn't have other people in them. They didn't have poor people in them. They didn't have prostitutes in them. They didn't have young people. They didn't have illiterate people in them. They seemed so small. They were just great intellects, but not much breadth of heart. And so, and my buddies, we all kind of felt that, so we kind of put the academic side, it was kind of in the background as we kind of pursued our kind of exploration of what life was about. And after about a couple of years, we all got an apartment together. Excuse me. Well, I went down the wrong pipe. So we had this great life together for about a year, and then gradually people started getting into drugs, you know. And at first, it didn't seem like that was that big a deal. I mean, it's like, I thought it was kind of like alcohol or something, no big deal. But as time went on, the people got more and more into their own experience, into their own heads. And I saw kind of before my eyes the core, the unity that we had amongst our buddies begin to fragment and shatter, and it really, I suffered a lot to see that. And at the same time, I began to feel very depressed. Back in those days, this is the mid-60s, we really didn't know much about drug vibrations and the effect it might have. But there were all these drugs going on in this apartment, and I was getting so depressed. I thought it was just that I was losing my sense of what the purpose of life was, and it was partly that, but I'm sure a lot of it was just the effect of drugs. Eventually, our whole group kind of dispersed. We all got, you know, separate places, and that unity never came back amongst us. But anyway, I got a place, a single room in a boarding house. And this room had only one window, and the window looked out on this air shaft. It was like a 10 by 10 foot air shaft. I opened the window, I looked down, there's all this garbage that people have been throwing down for years. I looked up, and there's just like a little square of sky about like 10 feet above, 10 stories up. Couldn't even tell what kind of day it was. And I began to get so depressed. You know, when you're depressed, New York has just the place for you. I mean, I started sinking. There was one lady that lived down the hall. I never even saw her. No one ever came to visit her. And one day, some paramedics came and took her off, kind of like she died anonymously. I mean, this is all so depressing. I'll get into some better stuff. Anyway, at one point, I began, sleeping 8 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours, and then I began sleeping 20 hours a day. I was so depressed. At one point, I would get these spells in which the whole world would become two-dimensional, flat. I mean, I must have been in some psychotic state or something. I didn't go to any psychiatrist or therapist. I thought I'm going to just tough this out. And there was one woman that took great compassion on me, and she would come and drag me out so I would at least use up some hours in the day not sleeping, and have me meet her for lunch. And if it hadn't been for her, I probably would have gone to a mental institution. But anyway, at one point, I happened to call one of my older sisters who was in California, and I don't know what I said, but she sent a train ticket out, and the next thing I knew, I was on my way out of New York, on my way to California. My sister lived in Palo Alto when I got here. If I were to describe my state, my childhood was like taking binoculars and seeing everything up close and so vital. And the state I was in was like taking the binoculars and turning them around the other way. Everything was so far away. I couldn't believe it that after this idyllic childhood, I'd lost so much. Anyway, when I stayed there, and my sister had 4 kids, and they were between the ages 4 and 7, and for some reason, they dragged me into everything. They really took to me, and I spent day in and day out going to places with them and playing with them, and even though I couldn't feel their innocence and their love and their spontaneity, I could see it, and just to be in their presence helped. And after a number of months, I gradually kind of became a little bit normal. And I went up to, I was so spaced out, you cannot believe it. Anyway, for some reason, I got the idea to go back to college, go back to New York. I felt impelled. And so, in the fall of 1967, I came back to New York, and for a long time I couldn't find a place. And eventually I got a place that was about 40 blocks from college on West 81st Street. And the moment I went to this place, I began having this experience of joy. It was so sustained. I used to call it a state of happiness for no reason. A state of happiness, I had no reason. Why was I happy? Terrible things would be happening and everything like that, and I just couldn't leave this state. And as time went on, I began to have this inner awakening, and I became convinced, not through books, but from experience, that we all have this higher destiny. There is a glorious thing awaiting us. It came to me. I found out, if you go ahead, 15 years later, I was with Tex Hightower in the original kitchen, and we were talking about New York. Tex Hightower was one of Margaret's dancers, and he had been with Baba since the 40s and met Baba on a number of occasions. And we were talking, and I found out that he was living this far away from me. So I must have come in the aura of his devotion to Baba and all his relics, his Baba treasures, and the vibrations were coming through the wall. Anyway, the second semester, this fellow, I enrolled in a painting course, and it was 3 days a week from 9 to 12, and midway through, for a half hour, we would take a break. One of the first breaks, I went up to this canteen on the top of the building and had a cup of coffee and a roll, and I sat down. And 5 of those are perfect masters. And They're in charge of the whole world. They control, they look after the whole world. And every 700 or 1400 years, these guys bring down God in human form. Now he's Mayor Baba, he was Jesus, Buddha, and everything in the past. He goes on like this. He says, and you and I, we used to be stones. And we went through minerals, and we went through the animal kingdom, and we went through all the species, and fish, animal, and we got to the human form. But don't think you stop there, because you got a lot to go through. You're rich, you're poor, you're black, you're white, you're yellow, you're green, whatever. And eventually, you think you're going to get out, but you got to go through these inner planes. And this is the way this guy is talking. In the primer of how to introduce Baba to others, you won't find it. Anyway, Mitchell's telling me I've got like 5 minutes left, right?
Before we just let's take a small break.
Yeah, we're gonna take. Okay.
No, we can continue.
Yeah, there'll be a little break and all, because I might not get to the very moment. Anyway, so where was I? So you go through these planes and you get these divine fragrances and this music of the spheres, and then you come into these powers. And if you misuse your powers on the fourth plane, you can go all the way down to the stone form. It's like a board game or something. But the guy was so entertaining that I just listened with rapt attention. Anyway, we would meet every break. The next day, he was reading the Wayfarers at the time, which is Baba's work with the God-intoxicated people, the Mus. And of course, he not only just mentioned your regular Mus, but he had to mention the one who takes his body apart, and his organs out and washes them and puts them all back. At one point, he held the book up and he said, "See this guy?" I looked at the guy and it was just like this bum sitting on a pile of debris. He says, "This guy spent 19 years in the public urinal." Wow, like, this is the way. The guy was like, eventually, he hardly talked about Bob. I didn't really hear too much about Bob the man. But I used to object to, I didn't feel you should ever follow anybody. And we would have talks about, following, But anyway, one day he asked me if I would go to this Baba meeting. I said, well, sure, the guy's all right and everything. Where's the harm? So I told another buddy of mine, Ken Rickstad, and asked if he wanted to go. So we went down to West 57th Street, came up in the elevator, opened on the 4th floor, and it came into this hall. And in the hall, as I remember, my memory is, were all these old ladies. Fat ladies, thin ladies, black ladies, Jewish ladies, Puerto Rican ladies. They took a look at us and they started hugging us. And they passed us from one to the other. And at one point I was right in the middle of this and I thought, wow, right in the middle of New York City, such spontaneous affection. This can't be, This is what it was when I grew up. But anyway, so I went into the hall. It was a hall about this size. It was Little Carnegie Hall. It was a music recital hall. They had a meeting. I don't remember much, but there were movies and some readings and everything. And at the end, they would have this period of silence. And Ella Winterfeld would ring a bell, and after 3 minutes, they would ring the bell again, and at the end, it concluded. So anyway, they rang the bell, and they asked, the people think of Baba, who was in India at that time. This was 1968. So I closed my eyes. I don't even know who he is, I'd be like saying, close your eyes and think of my Uncle George. So I thought, well, it's only 3 minutes of my life. I'll wait it out. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking around. I'm like touched, I didn't believe in religion, but, I looked around and it looked all right on me, I looked around and, oh my God. There was at the front of the room, there was a large photograph of Baba on an easel. And suddenly, I'll tell you, it was that photograph, it was that picture right there. Suddenly, Baba's eyes came alive. Oh my God, the love in his eyes, I knew that that had to be the love that was behind all of this. I knew there was love. And Baba began looking at everybody in the room with those love glances, and everybody I could see was his very favorite. I'd never seen anyone look through a whole room and take each one in so deeply. And then gradually Baba's eyes filled the whole room, and I was looking face to face in Baba's eyes. And just bottomless pools of love. I mean, you just had to melt in the face of his eyes. And the next thing I knew, I was like lifted up into this sublime realm, like I had never experienced before. Such a magnificent place. And Baba was beside me. And down below was the room that we were all in. It was about 100 feet below was the room. And Baba said that he wanted me to serve those people. My background was humanitarian, and I said to Baba, why just them? Why not every man? But Baba, didn't respond, didn't say anything. The next thing I knew, this bell was ringing, and I was back in my seat. Oh man, I was like ecstatic. I mean, when I went out in this kind of cold, miserable winter New York day, evening, I had no idea that I would walk into this. And so afterwards,
Such a great story. I was going to try to edit it down to 15 minutes, but I just couldn't. I couldn't stop it early. I just thought, no, I can't stop the best part. We have to hear it. So you could hear
I turned to Terry and I said, I can't believe we're hearing a new story.
Yeah.
I know. It's incredible, isn't it? And all that
For me, I'm with him so much on Zoom that I've heard pieces of the story, but I've never heard like it all together. And so it was almost familiar in a weird way, but it was, I don't know, it was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know. I loved hearing it. And I've literally talked to Jeff for days of my life when I add it all up, and I've never heard that story before. I just didn't know it. And it was just so fantastic to hear it. And I think actually my favorite part of that whole story, I'm interested in hearing what y'all's favorite part of it is, but my favorite part of that story was when he said that when he was in college, Adele Vulcan brought him the quality of longing for him to participate in and experience. And I just thought, it's not everybody that can do that. Bring you the quality of longing into your life and let you feel that and experience it and grow with it and let it pull you forward,
And there's not everybody in life that can see that it's coming to them and that they can capture it and enjoy it and take it in the way it should be taken in.
Right.
So it's definitely, it's very Bubba-esque, I think.
I love the way these old ladies, grab them one by one, you have to realize there was nothing but little old ladies. We were the young ones. Everybody was old. I had never met old people before because my mum was only 19 years older than me. I didn't know much about old people. Everyone was old and everyone just wanted to gobble us up. We were young and we wanted to read their books and we wanted to listen to them. It was exquisite. It somehow reminded me of that time. Lovely.
Yeah, the power of physically touching people. I was very moved by that story too. Yeah, that they felt so loved, that they felt so seen, that they felt so included.
Adele was such a loving person. I mean, I can easily understand that. She touched people. And she came close. She accepted you so much, so well, so warmly, and she felt like a link to Baba.
Yeah, I really enjoyed meeting her. I met her, I think, 3 or 4 years before she died.
Yeah.
There was something very lovely about her. Something very authentic about her.
Absolutely no boundaries. She was a boundaryless ocean, Adele. It was just like you could flow through her or around the edges, and she'd flow through you. She was very unique and so abstracted but intelligent, incredibly intelligent. It was a hidden skill, but when the chips were down, out it would pop.
Do you remember if she used to play the ukulele?
I don't think so.
I've never heard her. I've never seen her play anything.
Did she?
I don't know. I just remember one of the old Baba lovers, like we're describing here. My first trip to the Baba Center, which was at Christmas of '69, was sitting on a table in the original kitchen, strumming a ukulele and singing, "Everybody Needs a Guru."
Ukuleles have a way of just making everybody happy, don't they?
It's true. My dentist plays Hawaiian music.
No.
And it's so out there. It's so relaxing. There's something about ukuleles.
Yeah.
You know, Baba had Adele stay at Marizod with he and the Mandali for what, I don't know, any of you know how long it was. It was some weeks that she spent there, I think, with Baba.
Wow.
At Marizod.
Wow. Yes,
Yeah.
there's photographs. People think it's someone else, but it's yeah.
She heard of Baba very early. Was, I think, in the 30s, perhaps. I may be wrong, but like I believe she may have. Because they heard, she and Adele heard of Baba from talks by Marina Machiavelli. Yeah.
I have his plant.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, she and Phyllis were sort of what can you say? Go-getters and fetchers and almost servants to Marina and Elizabeth and Kitty at some point. They used to have some very funny stories about it all. But yes, they go way back.
Well, we're out of time. I'm sorry I didn't get to read as much poetry as I had hoped, and I lost that one YouTube of Jeff singing. I love hearing him sing. So anyway, I guess it was all good because it was so great to hear that story. Thank you all for indulging me and sharing that. And I'm not sure what we're doing next month for poetry, but if you have any requests, just send them over. Happy to hear anything that you might like. But, oh, thought Dinah was saying something. So anyway, thank you.
I was saying something.
What were you saying, Jim? What?
Are you going to be here next month?
Oh, no, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in Mexico. And so we'll need
Do you think, is that being codependent that I know your schedule better than you?
No, that's being a friend. So yeah, I'll get in touch and see if somebody wants to host. So if you want to host, just text me or email me, call me, whatever. Happy to pass it over to you. And I have some ideas about some things we could do if you need some suggestions. And I'm gonna send out. I'm doing a performance with a Baba lover on the 16th, Sunday the 16th here in Asheville, and it's gonna be put on Zoom, which I've never done a poetry reading on Zoom before. So James Vanderberg is going to be performing with me if y'all know him. Anyway, I'll send the link out if you want to come. It's going to be mostly my work, but a little bit of Rumi and Hafez. So that'll be fun.
Thank
Always
you.
fun to be able to share poetry in whatever form.
What's the date again?
It's Sunday, the 16th. In Eastern time, it's 7 to 8:30. So that's your time, probably around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, something like that. But I'll send a link out so you can, it'll be on Facebook and I'll send it out to you.
Have it.
Is it being recorded?
I'll find out. I'm not sure. I'll find out. Yeah. So anyway, thank you all so much for the listening ear and your presence. Always so great to gather with you. and share in the joys of poetry that brings longing to us. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tracy.
Jai Baba.